What's going on, everybody? Eric Lindquist at Stochastic here in the OddsShopper channel, coming to you with a Thanksgiving edition of Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks. Hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell. Goes a long way for me on this video. Goes a long way for you. That way you become a prize of whatever great content is going live here at our little neck of the YouTube woods. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. If you're checking this out here on Wednesday, well, welcome. Love to have you here. Recorded this really late on Tuesday night. Wanted to give you plenty of time to react to some of these numbers. Plus, my lock. I posted it over on X already, so it might be a little bit redundant, but have very interested plays from that first game. Then we get into the like territory there in the nightcap, but that middle game, that Dallas, New York, gross, grimy NFC East game, I have a ton of interest in it. I'll explain why. But 60% off using code Lindy60. Why don't you get a head start on that? Check out everything that I have to offer in that Discord with promo code Lindy60. Yes, this is Black Friday coming to you a little bit early. Cyber Monday coming to you way early. In fact, this will be live here until that late midnight Eastern time window on Monday. Would love to have you guys come kick it in Tails. That is where I'm going to be posting all of my updated plays, giving you all of my updated information I possibly can. And hey, Lindy60 gets you 60% off. That is off of $20 for a week. That is $8 for 1 week. Off of $50 for a month. That, my math tells me, is $20 for an entire month. Come check it out at the link below. But we got 3 games here on Thanksgiving. Hopefully you're enjoying your fam. Some people might not be. Hey, stay tough and enjoy gambling. Producer Jacob, let's get to the picks. We begin our day with the Chicago Bears taking on the Detroit Lions here, 10.5. We're also seeing some 9.5s. We're seeing some 10s. We're seeing a ton of line disparity here across the board. Now, 48.5 total. That's the first thing that stands out to me. And David Montgomery, on Tuesday, he was limited in practice. I think he'll be good to go here in this one. Now, remember, anytime you get one of those two out, you just jam the other one anytime touchdown number because it's going to be ridiculous. You jam their yardage, they're going to get like 90% of the snaps. We've seen that so many times with one of Gibbs or Montgomery being limited or out, and the other one just takes over the universe. So keep that in mind. But with both of them sitting minus 180, minus 200, I'm really not interested in trying to play that guessing game. Now, the Bears, despite being 4-7 on the season, I found it interesting. They are 6-4-1 against closing line spreads. 6-4-1. They've been a profitable team to bet on this season. And that has me a little bit uncomfortable purely because the switch from Waldron at offensive coordinator, firing him, sending him out on a rail, has led to some interesting usage. In fact, DJ Moore coming back from the grave against my Minnesota Vikings here last week. You had Keenan Allen really getting targeted ad nauseum. In fact, they got away from what they needed to do, which was just continuing to completely clamp down on Justin Jefferson there in that overtime period. Let him get loose for one play and one play only, one play to rule them all, one play to find them. But Jalen Johnson, this is a curious cornerback because when shadowing, he has been awesome so far this season. But teams, they do a little less shadowing at times. You know, they really go out of their way to shut down guys whenever they can. His coverage grade has been worse on PFF than I expected. But last season, he was the #1 cornerback in all of football. And I think he's been playing a little bit closer to that style of football the last couple of weeks. We haven't really seen anybody get loose with it, goose with it. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, is probably the guy who gets that special, lovely little Jalen Johnson treatment. And as such, probably going to be a little bit lower on him from a DFS perspective if you're in the DFS streets, which obviously I'm talking about on Stochastic every single time. But I'm just telling you right now, Amon-Ra St. Brown, somebody I'm actually interested in shorting. But because I generally bet more of my overs now, like earlier in the week, and then I'll bet a lot of my unders closer to kickoff as they get bet up by the public, the guys that I'm really paying attention to are on that are not Amon-Ra St. Brown. Sam Laporta, 3.5 receptions is a pretty low number for a guy that last year was kind of the go-to guy. Now, Brock Wright is mixing in a little bit more than I would like here, and they're playing some 12 there, and it's the best offensive line in football, so I get it. But 6 targets for Sam Laporta last week only resulted in 3 catches. 6 targets against Houston only resulted in 3 catches. He's been dinged up a little bit this season at times, and Sam Laporta, I think we're going to have that big game sooner or later. TJ Hawkinson, a little bit effective, but again, such a limited sample size in NFL relative to other sports. It's not all that easy to be able to just say, hey, 3.5 receptions here for Sam Laporta is a smash. And that's why even at plus 112, where it's currently at BetRivers, Best number I can get at a book I'm not limited at is plus 106. So I guess it could be a lean like if you have Bet Rivers, sure, plus 112, you could fire it up. But I think I'm a little bit more interested in Jameson Williams anytime touchdown. Going to be a lean plus 230. Plus 230 for his anytime touchdown number. I think if you avoid that Jalen Johnson shadow coverage, you're getting the likes of like a Tyreek Stevenson out there. You're going to get Byard just roaming the desert out there. Kevin Byard, one of the better safeties in the NFL. But I feel pretty confident. Again, I'm focusing in on the Detroit side. I'm also interested in Rome Odunze as far as his reception props, because he kind of ended up being the forgotten guy a little bit last week. But I think the target share in a game where you're nearly, two touchdown score, like you are two score dogs at 10.5 here. I think the main thing is just looking at Sam Laporta over 3.5 receptions, Jameson Williams anytime touchdown, Detroit 9.5, but currently none of them on the card. So let's just do this. Just throw it all up in the corner there. This is a game that I will have some betting interest in. I mean, there's only 3 that we're paying attention to, but outside of Jameson Williams plus 230, which is like right on the cusp, I think we're probably looking at nothing at the moment. Again, Jameson Williams could get upgraded to like this second, but there's always going to be something that might look a little bit better, or maybe it gets pushed up to plus 240 to plus 250 if people are really on Gibbs and Montgomery here. But for the most part, a game that is tough to be actionable with at this given time. Oh, darling, the Giants taking on the Dallas Cowboys, 3.5-point dogs. The 2-9 Giants. Brian Dable, man, what is going on here? They're 3-8 against the spread, terrible. But the Cowboys are 4-7 and 3-8 against the spread themselves. Again, these are closing line spreads that I'm comparing them to. I always like to do it that way as opposed to just the traditional, like, you can kind of skew the data if it opens at one number and moves. Like, think about San Francisco and Green Bay last week. I mean, that opened at 1.5. We bet it at 3 if you listen to Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks, 2.5 if you took one of the alt numbers, and then closes like closer to a touchdown number when you get Brock Purdy ruled out. So we were ahead of the curve on that one. That lock comes to fruition. In fact, hit both of those locks on Sunday. That felt good for the people. Now, I love what I'm doing here with this football game here at this given present time. Now, the Cowboys showed out against Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. I almost said the other team that they are, but or were once upon a time. But defensively, they're starting to get some pieces back, specifically Micah Parsons. However, even though he's not on the injury report right now, he did limp off the field in that game. It's only a 37 total in this one in Cowboys Stadium, which, again, it's not typically the way that you're going to see things here, but you get Smith, you get Bland, you get Kendricks. All of them continue to be on this, and Martin. So specifically, the 2 guys on the offensive line there in Smith and Martin, gigantic pieces. They were out for that Sunday game. Do they play here on a short week? I'm not sure. But Cooper Rush, CeeDee Lamb, the Cowboys defense with some fluky plays here and there. They played a lot better than what I was anticipating there in that game. That is for sure. I think than most people were. And now you're walking into a spot where they're 3.5-point favorites, which might be a little bit hefty for my liking. However, yeah, I will lean on the Dallas side. I think, though, if you made me bet one thing based on Dable's wording on Tuesday's practice, I would fire up the Giants plus 3.5 if I were looking at a side, and here's why. I think Drew Lock is more of like a 50-50 style type play number to be active in this game. What do I mean by that? Tommy DeVito got dinged up on the shoulder, and now it's a forearm injury that's showing up here. Feels like he's the walking wounded at the moment. Plus, he's one of the worst quarterbacks that I've evaluated maybe ever at the NFL level. I know that my friend Matt Kajeski has a little bit more to say on the matter here over on OddsShopper and over at Stochastic, but even still, Drew Lock started 2 games last season against San Francisco and against, well, he was on Seattle there, but it was one of those interesting spots where he ends up throwing for over 200 yards. One's like 206, one's like 260. But the whole point is that the difference between Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock, based from just a purely evaluation standpoint, it's like the difference between a 6th grade starting quarterback at the high school level and having a senior who's been starting for the last 4 years. It is a gigantic talent gap that you can't really wrap your head around unless you're watching the tape, unless you're in the trenches. And I got to tell you, the Giants, they have some really low receiving props as of recording this right now. In fact, it's gotten bet up like 2-3 yards since I posted this over on X, but I'm obsessed with the idea of taking both Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson, 2 wide receivers we expect to be on the field ad nauseum Theo Johnson's dinged up. Otherwise, I probably would have added him to the mix. Darius Slayton probably just going to be mixing in here and there. But I'm obsessed with combining both of them in a plus 250 parlay. This is over at Hard Rock here at the moment. You can also get it plus 242 at BetMGM. You can also get it plus 229 at Flip, which is available to just about everybody, 46 of the 50 states. So Malik Neighbor, 60 plus receiving yards with Wan'Dale Robinson, 30 plus receiving yards. I got this at plus 250. Telling you right now, if Lock starts, Neighbor's number will be 65, 66, if not more. Wan'Dale's number will be 35, 36 or more. We're talking a gigantic disparity for the two guys who just stand to benefit the most from a receiving perspective. In fact, the entire Giants offense, that number will go from plus 3.5 inside of plus 3, having Drew Lock at the helm, as opposed to Tommy DeVito. So letting you know, it is a gigantic deal and one that I'm willing to invest with right now. Plus, there's the chance that DeVito ends up getting the start, ends up getting dinged up, or something's just not right and you can see it right away. And then they bring Drew Lock in, who it's under his contract. He can only start 7 games, but he can appear in other games and not get that bonus at the end of the season. I know that was a lot to throw at you, but I'm telling you right now, combine those two in a parlay, my favorite play from Thanksgiving Day. You want to get all the rest of the goodness that shows up on Thanksgiving Day? Well, 60% off here, Black Friday, coming a little early to you with Lindy 60. Would love to have you in that Discord. Again, it becomes $20 into $8 for a week. $50 turns into $20 for a month. Would love to have you in there. Nothing really else to explain. Go to the link below, sign up. Would love to have you there. Alrighty, y'all, back to the picks we go. And the Miami Dolphins taking on the Green Bay Packers. This is a tough handicap because you got done. I mean, Green Bay could not have just proved me right anymore. I mean, it was such an absolute smash. San Francisco's defense is not the same. And then obviously no Brock Purdy. We expected that. The number moved in a gigantic way. We're able to, no matter where you bet it, you ended up making money because they just eviscerated San Francisco. But it's hard to evaluate that game. In Miami, they've played better and better, especially with Tua at the helm. Even these games that they've lost have been extremely, extremely close. I'm staring directly at that Arizona game. They never should have lost that 28-27. Buffalo, they got eviscerated. That's about it in week 2, and he got dinged up. But Jacksonville, they took care of business there in the week 1. They took care of business against the Rams, 23-15. The defense played great. Vegas, 34-19 in New England. But, and that's the Rams, Vegas, and New England the last 3. It is so hard to see anything that is all that accurate about that. But I love what we saw from Tua against Buffalo, and this is kind of what I'm really clinging towards. 124.9 passer rating, 25 of 28, 89% in a loss, a 30-27 loss in that game. That was a little bit surprising, but Tua has played exceptionally well when out on the field. And now he goes up against a Green Bay defense that I'm not entirely sold on, and I think is a really hard evaluation. They're ranked 17th in PFF grading, and once you know it, Jair Alexander questionable with a leg injury. I won't know that news until Thursday afternoon. You probably won't know that news until Thursday afternoon. But Romeo Doubs questionable for this one. That becomes interesting because I do think he's more of the go-to. That's a huge piece on the offensive and defensive side to play through. I don't really know how I feel about that here at the moment from just like betting this game outright. But what I do know is that the Dolphins, Tyquan Armstead, he's questionable for this game. If he ends up playing, it is such a gigantic upgrade for that left side of the offensive line. I can't even tell you. You have Ramsey questionable on the offensive side. Tyreek Hill's questionable, although I very much hear that he is going to be playing for this one. And I think that 47.5 total, even in the weather here in Lambeau, it's 31 degrees. Doesn't look like a ton of wind here at the moment. I think that total's in danger of getting bet over. I see a 47 on the board too. So I'm going to take a look at that one as we get closer to kickoff. But for right now, Devon Achane, he's minus 105. If you've been watching this program for the last however long, he gets a lot more goal line work. Raheem Mostert, they're going away from him. Jalen Wright, been the guy who's been mixing in a little bit more as the secondary back, but he is basically just a change of pace, quick breather back for Miami. And the schematics here that Mike McDaniel has going for Devon Achane to get him involved in the passing game, it's been absurd. 8, 8, 5, 4, 4. Those are his targets the last 5 weeks with Tua at the helm. Unbelievable stuff here. It's too good from the passing game and for being a bell cow back, and that's exactly what he's been here. Even in some of these blowouts, playing a little bit more. Devon Achane is a smash at minus 105. I'm keeping it as a like purely because I want to emphasize how much I like that Giants and Dallas spot. But if you're in that premium Discord and you see that number at -105 as we lean into Thursday, might get doubled down on. So if you're looking at, hey, I just want to bet that instead of a parlay like the last game, I'd be okay with this being a unit send. But knowing how many props can potentially show up for that Thursday, trying to keep this a little bit light, but this is by far my favorite play from the game as of right now. We'll evaluate more on Thanksgiving Day. And that does it for another edition of NFL Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks. Hopefully you enjoy Thanksgiving. You have a fantastic time watching the games, hanging out with your family. And if not, well, it'll all be over soon. Enjoy Black Friday. Go shopping. Go do something else. Hit that like button down below. Really appreciate everybody checking out and all the positive juju here the last couple of weeks because the NFL has really been rolling on this video. In fact, I would say in the Discord, it's been a little bit more muted here in terms of the results, aside from just my favorite plays from each individual game. But you know what? They benefited a lot. Austin Eckler, I'm looking at you. We'll cover Washington because, God, everybody's going to be out at the running back position for him this week. Can't even take advantage of our favorite son, Austin Eckler, in that one. But until next time, thank you, producer Jacob. I'm Eric Lindquist. Best of luck in the NFL streets on Turkey Day. Happy Thanksgiving.